The DarkStar is not the most intuitive aircraft to get to, Mach 9. It is not impossible, and we're going to take a look at it in this video. To start out with, we are going to go and load this thing up full of fuel. This is especially helpful for being able to do the scramjet portion because you will burn up a lot of fuel using the afterburners to enable that. Also, we need to look at the control. Notice that it stops right there, and until I push a button, it doesn't go into afterburner. Now, afterburner will stay engaged all the way up until you touch all the way to the idle before it locks in again, and it locks out at min to max. So you need to be aware of that. Now, we can set that up as a quick key, and that's what I prefer, is having a quick key. I use a HOTAS, so I'm going to go over to the HOTAS and show you where I have it set up on the HOTAS throttle. I use this little button right there, and all you have to do is type into this search bar, afterburner. And there you go. You can set up your key from here, and this will aid us in being able to go to the scramjet side of the aircraft. So let's go start her up. Now, when you start up cold and dark, it's a little bit daunting to figure out what keys you're looking for. But right here, there's a battery button that turns on all the main systems. Then we have the monitor where we can see how the engines are running. And down here, we have the controls. We want to click on the start and move one of the engines to start. Now, I like doing this the way I've seen like civilian aircraft do it. They always start up one engine, and once it gets revved up and they can enable the generator for it, they start up the second engine. So in this instance, I'm going to start up each engine individually. And right here, we have the generator toggles, and that will start generating electricity from the rotating engine. So we'll just turn that one on because this engine looks like it's pretty full at full power, or full idle power. And then we can start the other engine, and you can see the other engine is starting to spool up. So now that the aircraft is fully powered, we are good to go. Well, we can actually come over here and we can turn on the external lights. I probably should have turned on some of these lights before. I know that there's procedures for it, but oops, you live and you learn. At this point, take off however you desire, and we'll see you at 30,000 feet. As I neared 30,000 feet, there's a couple of things I want to point out. One, I still haven't gone into afterburner. I just decided to use conventional engine power from here. And two, I want to try to get as much speed as I can before I start my dive. I've noticed that when I'm not patient and I dive immediately into this process, that I have about a 50-50 chance of actually succeeding going into the scramjet side. So a couple of things we can do, and you can see our speed is a 0.75 Mach. I'm going to engage the afterburner, and we're going to pick up just a little bit more speed. We'll actually exceed Mach 1 at this point. So as we're climbing, I'm going to get ready for some other things. Let's look at this screen. We have a little bit of definition here. It says start at 30,000 feet. You're going to do a 20% dive. You should be at 1.5 Mach at the bottom, and then you can start transitioning into the scramjet. So let's try it. We're going to dive into the 20% down, and we're going to push for this dive. Now, I'm going to not do any cuts aside from going in and outside of the aircraft. Those aren't actual cuts. Those are just a toggle. During this dive, we're going to be doing a few things. We need to turn on fuel cell, and we will need to enable the scramjet system. But while we're diving, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the physics of what's going on. We are getting so fast that essentially the aircraft is not going to respond as well as it used to. Not to give it any bad notes, but this aircraft doesn't respond very well even on normal speeds. But when we pass Mach 1, it starts to get a little bit slow on its reactions. So when we hit 10,000 feet, I'm going to start pulling out of this with a fervor, because if you start your pull out of the dive any lower than about 10,000 feet, you probably will kiss the ground, and that's not going to work well for your jet. And while we start our climb, I'm going to go down and we're going to turn on the fuel cell, because once we go into scramjet, the spinning engines will actually shut down, and that would mean that we were on battery and we wouldn't be able to control the aircraft theoretically, or the battery would run out. And so as you saw over there, I enabled the scramjet for when we pass the necessary speed for the scramjet to enable. Now you can see our engine, there's another temperature below the spinning engine. The spinning engine is, I don't know how this is actually working, but there's that lower temperature needs to climb to like 400 or 500 degrees before it will start working. But in my unlucky state, it's not climbing. It's actually going down. But that's not the end of the game. We can still do this. We might have to dive again, but we'll try it because it looks like the temperature slowed down. Oh, and it's starting to climb. It's climbing. It's climbing. This is good. This is good. And we're almost at. We're slowing down a little bit, but we're almost at Mach 2, which means conditions are almost right. Okay. Now, just so you're aware, I am still using full throttle and full afterburner to achieve this. And so yeah, we've got to get a little bit higher in speed before the scramjet will enable. And I want you to notice on the engine display, we have these little gray lines in the front and the back of each, or the left and the right of each of the engine images. Those are actual doors that will close, and when they close over the spinning engine, they will open up the scramjet and all the air will go through a non-moving part. It's pretty cool. So we're going to try diving off again and see if we can get that last little bit of power that we need. And it looks like the temperature's starting to jump pretty good. We're at 200 degrees. And there is a little bit of an indicator. I noticed it's really quiet, but there's like a deet, 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 deet before it actually starts transitioning the engine. And I'm going to hover my mouse over this little flap here for just a second. That's what we're watching for. Once it starts moving, you know you're good. So look, there it is. As you transition into the higher Machs, you will have a sonic boom if you have the sound enabled. But for the sake of allowing you guys to hear me more clearly and not have anything else in the way, I didn't have the sound on for this entire recording of the actual flight going on here. So yeah, we'll have to do without, but as you can see, everything is climbing very nicely. We're past Mach 5, and in just a few seconds, we will be, well, not a few seconds, but in a few minutes, you will be at Mach 9. Let's jump to that. And there we go, guys. We are climbing well past Mach 8 and very rapidly shoot into Mach 9. Now, I don't know what the magic number is. If you notice, we are pretty darn high. We're at 95,000 feet. That is pretty high. And the aircraft will go much higher than this as well. But as you start to climb past the 110s, you start to slow down a little bit. So you can see it leveled out at 9.84. It's almost going to climb a little bit more, and then it's going to drop. And I haven't figured out yet how to break the 10. I have done it a couple of times, but I didn't know that I was breaking Mach 10. And so this is the point where I'm going to leave it to you guys to figure it out. There is like a magic altitude that you can go to in which you are able to obtain Mach 10. That's a pretty impressive feat. Now, I've seen a little bit past it. I think it was like Mach 10.05 or something like that I was able to get to the one time, and I don't even remember the conditions of it. I was over Europe, but that's all I remember. But it is doable. Now, for this flight, I actually traveled for just a little over 24 minutes, and I traveled all the way across good old Australia. And, you know, that's pretty surprising. 24 minutes to make, what, a 9-hour flight at 110 miles per hour? I think that's pretty cool. When you finally decide to land this thing, keep in mind, it is a kind of a flying lawn dart, as it has a tendency to start diving on you or stalling out at lower speeds. So when you're trying to land this, keep an eye on your speeds and make sure that you're not letting yourself get too slow, because this beast will take a dive, and at low altitudes, you're not going to have enough time to get out of those dives. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for coming to the video and watching this far. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.